back, everybody. It's the video that many of you have been asking for, the 9795 in action. And definitely got a lot better hang running it this fall. But boy, after flying the drone and driving the combine at the same time with no auto steer, that was a challenge. There's a little bit of curvy-worvy out there. I'm gonna have to straighten out, but anything for my viewers. Knock on wood, it's been pretty trouble-free. I lost a guard. Not a big deal there, other than when we find it in a tire someday down the road. It has been very dry, very dusty, and I don't show it very well. It's currently saying 6.3% moisture coming in. I calibrated that to my nice or good tester, so I'm not sure when it gets that low, but it's dry. It's dry. You bite into them and they're like little rocks. The nice thing is I'm putting it into my bin, so I can run the fan on days with the right humidity and bring that moisture back up some before I actually ship them out. And you say, well, why would you want to do that? Drier, it does keep better, but when you sell, well, pretty much any grain, they weigh the truck. They don't take a bushel basket and physically measure out how many bushels are in there. They weigh the truck, they dump the grain, then they weigh the truck, and the difference is how much grain was in there. And then there are standards for how much different kinds of grains weigh. The standard for corn is 56 pounds per bushel. I believe beans are 60 pounds a bushel. So if they're too dry, all that moisture was water, and water weighs something. So generally they want them around 13.5%. So anything drier than that, you're actually losing money, because like I say, water weighs something. So I've heard of guys that will I had a neighbor, he was saying we had a foggy morning and he waited until then to run some of his. That got him back up around 12. He had to go slow because everything was covered with moisture, or, dew, and that just makes everything feed in and cut terrible. And so I don't know. It's darned if you do, darned if you don't. Because if I don't run them, then it'll rain for a month, and I'll wish I had got them. And once again, since I can put them in the bin, I can kind of update the moisture. Let's say that. It's against the law to, like, if I was loading them out to spray water in the auger to add some, that is against the law. But using aeration to either dry or change the moisture is not. You're just using the natural system. You're not basically adding water in by a garden hose or something. So perfectly acceptable. So I guess I'd rather harvest them and get them done. Gotta say, I love this Draper head. It just does a great job. A few rocks I've picked up with it, they either sit on the cutter bar, or they make it to the middle and land in, there's a spot with no belt. And you'd think stuff wouldn't get pulled in, but it does. The crop does, but the rocks don't. Knock on wood again. I have not pulled a rock in. I probably just jinxed myself. So maybe we won't put that in there. And of course, you know, got crooked rows here, so I got a little strip to go back and get. don't show up. See, there's a rock. We're just gonna lift up a little and set back down. So another thing it did today is the guys at Napoleon Feed Mill brought out their weigh wagon, and we did some calibration on for the yield monitor. What you do is just run a bunch, and it keeps track of what it thinks it weighs. So where you put it in a calibration mode, then you put it in a cart, and the cart tells you what it really weighed. You enter that into the computer, and it comes up with a new factor that it uses to calculate yield. So we did that a couple times just to make sure we had her pretty accurate, and I guess I'm not making maps with it or using it for reporting bushels or anything like that. It's still nice to know how stuff is yielding, different varieties, different areas in the field. Used to be I would just run until the grain tank was full, knew pretty much how many bushels it took to fill the grain tank on the old combine, kept track of the distance, did the math, more math, and you can figure out what your yield was. Pretty good. Whereas this is doing it on the fly. So pretty cool. One more thing to go wrong. I was launching the drone. How much is this showing up? Again, it's just so contrasty. It's very bright out. I launched it from the top of the cab, and I forgot about the bin extensions actually leaned forward above the cab, and so when it took off, it hit the bin extension. Hey, there's Adam. Say hi. He must have been checking on his beans. He's got some right over there. They got some green in them. They're just about ready, but I had run, well, everything I was going to put wheat on, plus a little bit more, and then I switched to running wheat because I had the same thing. I had some areas where there was still quite a bit of green in it, and I figured, well, I'll just concentrate on getting the wheat in the ground, and then I can switch back to this. And yeah, that was only, let's see, I ran beans on Saturday. I did some disking Saturday morning, and then Sunday I spent the whole day disking to get the rest of it done. And then Monday we planted a test plot, so that took a little extra time. And then I finished up the wheat yesterday, which would have been Tuesday. And it's right over there. That field right over there. If we get some rain, maybe it'll even grow. It is dry. It's like powder out there. I was impressed that the disc worked the ground. The beans have got the ground nice and mellow, so the disc was cutting in and working things, but no moisture was coming up. So I think even if I no-tilled it in, which I don't have a no-till drill, so there's that, I still don't think we would have been planting into moisture. We ended up planting 10 different varieties in the test plot. So always interesting to see how that does. I don't think I ever posted the results from this year's plot. Let's just say it didn't go as well as usual. I think most of the varieties were in the mid to upper 50s. And my best guess is some of the hills just were the sand hills on that field. The yield monitor were just dropped to nothing. Kind of like it is right here. And that's just because I'm running such a narrow strip, there ain't even enough coming into, if I sped up my ground speed, it might start reading. There it goes. Plus I didn't tell it that I'm not harvesting a whole width, so it's still dividing by 25 feet and yada, yada, yada. So my acres will be off a little. But, where was I going with all that? Oh yeah. Yeah, I'd get on those sand hills in the wheat, and it would just read 0 because there wasn't enough wheat coming through to trip its trigger. So I think those bad spots, there was wheat there, but it won't read much below 30 bushel an acre. So those spots really pulled my average down. It was saying in the low area, it's about 100 bushel an acre. So go figure. Beans ain't doing quite as good as I'd hoped. Right now the combine's saying about a 50 bushel acre average overall. The first field did not do the best. That was an earlier maturing variety. That field had some sandhills in it too, and then this field is longer maturing, but I think this year kind of the early stuff's actually doing as good as the late stuff. Because walking around in these, I'm seeing where there are pods that just didn't get filled out. Our water turned off late August when a lot of these, especially the later varieties, are filling pods and ran out of moisture, so it starts, or it gives up on some of the pods so it can finish the others. So that cost me some yield. Didn't really hurt the corn, I don't think, because that's just, it's pretty much made by the end of August. Can hurt your test weight if it really gets dry enough, but we had good moisture up until that point, so I'm expecting good corn yields, and these aren't terrible. I think I'm going to end up in the mid-50s overall. I think this field's doing up around 60, so nothing to, there's a rock. Whoop. Nothing to cry about. Oh, see there, it says 83. And now I always called yield monitors lie machines. And now that I've got one, I think that even more. There's you can watch, and if you, it has to do math with your ground speed, how much crop is coming in, the width. So if you pull back on the stick, sometimes you can trick it. Also, get in different areas, and you're gonna have better yields in low spots where there's moisture on dry years. And right now it's saying 57, 61, 64, 61. We just calibrated it, so I gotta think those numbers are pretty good. 56, 62. So once again, I can live with those. Now if it's just worth something. But I should have enough battery left in the drone to send it up for some footage of dumping in the wagons. Guess I could plug it in. I got a charger in here. I'll do that. We'll talk to you in a few minutes. Or maybe just about now. Thought the GoPro had, or the drone had more battery in it than it did, and so it decided to set itself down. It looks like it did it without any damage. I probably blew some soybeans around, but the blades are there. Guess I'll plug that in and charge it. Do a quick walk around. 2011 model year, which makes it pre-def. I think that was about the last year, somewhere close to it. All right, we'll get back at it.